We're back. Hello, welcome to the channel. Welcome to the SimConnect series of videos. And we're finally back with another video in the SimConnect, how to use the SimConnect for Flight Simulator 2024 series. Um, I hope you're still here. You're still interested in this content. Um, if you like content like this, please leave a like, subscribe to the channel. It helps a lot. Um, and that being said, let's get into it. Today's video is going to be about creating AI objects through SimConnect in Flight Simulator 2024. Um, uh, let's look at some theory first. I have a slide that I want to show you, which is this one. We've seen diagrams like this before in the series. We have the external program right here. We have Flight Simulator right there, and the SimConnect client and the server. If you're not familiar with how this works, please look at the Getting Started with SimConnect video because that will explain in more detail. I'll leave a link somewhere on the screen. And you can also find it in the playlist, so that's probably quite easy. The way it works is you have, once you're connected to the SimConnect server from the client, you call either SimConnect AI create simulated object or preferably call AI create simulated object EX1, which is the newest version. And I'll show you some code on how that looks and what to look for. And it will create your object if everything is correct, obviously. And then it will trigger an onReceive assigned object ID event. This one is important because you need to be able to do things with the object. And one very important thing is once you're done, you should also remove the object if possible. So you need this object ID. Unfortunately, the way this works is you, once you start sending, calling these AI create simulated object functions, you'll note that you cannot distinguish between these events for each call. So if you're going to create multiple objects, you're going to get multiple events triggered with different IDs, but there's no way to actually map those to the calls that you made. So how to use that, I'm going to show you in code because that's probably a lot easier. So let's switch to the code. Here we go. As you may remember from earlier videos, I have a simulator class in .NET, and this class is what I use to wrap calls like this and just abstract away the SimConnect functionality. Displace object function actually calls the AI create simulated object EX1. Before I do anything, I create an init position object, which is the SimConnect data init position class. This is actually part of the SimConnect. It's actually a struct, if I'm correct. We can actually check that out. Yes, this is a struct. This is what you send to actually initialize the position for the object. As you can see, you can set a latitude, a longitude, which is obviously the coordinates for the position on Earth. You can set an altitude. If this is an aircraft, for example, a pitch and a bank might be useful. You can set a heading, which rotates the model for you. You can say, should this be on the ground or not? This is actually a Boolean. So set it on 1, that will be on the ground. Set it to 0. Well, it will use the altitude. And you can actually set an airspeed. This is probably useful for anything in the air or maybe something driving around, something like that. For my specific use case, I only use heading, latitude, longitude, and on ground, but yeah, you can vary. And then you can just call this function. You need a name. This is the name of the object that you want to create, of the model that you want to create. Then there's a null parameter. You might wonder what's that? Well, that's actually the livery. So for the FS2024 aircraft, you can actually choose the livery. Before in FS2020, this was then you had a different object name for each livery. So you had to specify it over there, but now they have a separate parameter, which is useful. But for in our use case, we don't need liveries, so we'll just specify null. We pass in this initial position, and we pass in a request ID, and that's pretty much it. So then we get this event back. Let me just show you how that works. That is the onReceive assigned object ID event. So I connected that up there. And go to the definition of that. You'll get a sender like with every event, and you get a data object. This has a request ID, which has to match this create request, because that's how the object IDs get assigned. And then I call my internal do object ID assigned function, which I'm sorry about that, which will then invoke an event on the SimConnect class, of on the simulator class. So that's how I communicate the events to the rest of the application. Now, as I mentioned earlier, you need to keep track of the IDs, and because you cannot distinguish between events when the IDs are assigned in order to map them to the requests that you made, I implemented a little trick. So I want to show you that now. So I'm going to go to my incursion logic class, which is where I wrap logic for my application in this case. And I'll just show you, let me just grab that real quick. Down over here. So this is when I start creating objects. So I want to create multiple objects. In this case, I want to create 10 objects. This is just test code for now. So I'll calculate some point, and then I'll create a managed object in this case, which is how I keep track of my objects. By the way, if you're interested in math like this, how you get a random point in some location, or how to do vectors on the planet and stuff like that, calculate geolocations. I might just do a video on that topic. If you guys are interested, just leave a comment and let me know. So I create this object. In this case, I have this object named black bear. So I'm trying to create a bear, and then we'll actually have an initial location, and we wanted to set the altitude as well, and then we'll add that to a list. So we have this collection of objects. We'll add it there. So we've have this collection of 10 objects, and then I call a function create next object, which will actually go through this list, this collection, and create objects. So how that works is it gets the next object that has no ID, so an ID of 0, which initially they will all have. So it will get the first one, and then if there's no more objects, it should obviously stop, so it gets a null. And if not, it will call my place object function that we saw earlier to create the object. It will then get the event back, which is the object ID assigned event with the object ID. So I'll then just go grab the object that does not have an ID, the first one that does not have an ID, and it has to be that object. I created that object, assign the ID, and then go and do the next one. So the point is you have to iterate through a list of objects, and you have to create them one by one and wait for the ID to come back before you can create the next one, because then you know what object you were creating and you can assign the ID to that object. That's how this works. I could show you in practice how this works. So we can just run the app. UI is still not very nice, but it's useful for testing. I have Flight Simulator running right here. Let's create a free flight. Well, doesn't really matter. We'll create a nice airport somewhere where this makes a little sense. How about just scroll in a little bit further, get a nice position. This doesn't have a parking spot somewhere. It's fine. And we can just, you know what, I'll put it on a runway because then it's probably easier to see. Start a flight. This usually doesn't take very long. Too bad we're on the, that's more like it. And then if I grab the app real quick, if I could connect, it will actually have called to create, and you can see I have bears on the runway. So that's really cool. It works. That's what I want to show you today. So again, if you're interested in videos on SimConnect or on other topics around programming with SimConnect, like geolocation calculation, for example, please subscribe, leave a like, let me know if there's any other topics that you would like to discuss by leaving a comment. And I want to thank you for watching. And see you next time.